Hello friends, welcome to yet another session on essay perspectives. The topic for today is economics is too important to leave to economists. Friends, as always, I have a personal appeal. My book Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude has unfortunately been pirated, and pirated copies are of very low print and paper quality. I urge all of you to buy original. The original copies can be bought from the seller Arvind India on Flipkart and the seller Affordable on Amazon. Thank you. Friends, as for every essay, we need to conceptualize the essay as being made of various components and subcomponents. So this essay has the following components conceptualized in it. So first we would introduce the topic, then we would dwell upon the essence of the topic, then we would talk about the limitations of economists, and then we would talk about the other actors who would serve the purpose of economics better. Then we would pause for a bit and pose a critical question to ourselves: are economists redundant? And then we would conclude. Friends, the moment I saw this topic, I was reminded of the great Mangalyaan launched by ISRO. And when the Mangalyaan was launched in ISRO way back in 2014, there was much talk about the budget involved in it. ISRO could launch a Mars orbiter mission with a minuscule budget of only 450 crore, which was way lower than the budget for the Hollywood space adventure movie Gravity, whose budget was somewhere around 600 crore. So then everybody lauded ISRO for having launched Mars orbiter mission at a budget which is less than the budget of a Hollywood movie. You may be wondering, friends, how is this Mars budget and Gravity budget related to the present topic? Friends, what is economics? Economics essentially studies the problem of allocation of limited resources to unlimited wants, right? So that is the single line definition of what economics is. See here this the comparison between Mangalyaan budget and budget for the movie Gravity, don't you think would help us think in that way? See, the budget is very much scarce anywhere, be it in India, be it in US or wherever. It is the smartest, the economist seeks to decipher as to how the scarcely available budget to be allocated to various demands, various needs, various wants. Correct. So here, realizing the scarcity of the budget, it was Indian scientists at ISRO applied their brain, done a lot of experiments, and finally they could tweak many processes, and they were able to come up with a solution of superior quality with very low budget, right? Don't you think this work of scientists at ISRO serve the purpose of economics? See, the purpose of economics is to allocate the limited resources to unlimited wants. Correct? So then we presume that it is only an economist who would try to explore the models, try to come up with the solutions as to how the limited resources can be allocated to unlimited ones. But in this case of Mangalyaan, was it any economist who came up with an idea of tweaking the budget? Definitely no, right? It was done by the scientists at ISRO who were able to reduce the budget and ensuring that the scarce resources is allocated to the unlimited wants. That is the base problem of economics. So thus what I am trying to tell you is, so perhaps if it were, it is not just an economist who can make economics work. As in the case of Mangalyaan, there are others also who can make economics work. Okay, by making economics work, I mean by coming up with solutions which would enable efficient allocation of limited resources to unlimited wants. So that efficient allocation of limited resources to unlimited wants need not be done by economists alone. It can be done by other professionals as scientists in this case. Friends, after introduction, it is time for us to delve on the essence of the topic. So this topic essentially consists of two key terms, economics and economist. Friends, what is economics? As already described in the previous slide, economics is the study of nature of resources, or rather nature of limited resources and unlimited resources, in order to come up with solutions for effective allocation of limited resources to cater to unlimited wants. So this is the single line textual textbook definition of economics. This economics has, as most of us are aware, two branches. One is microeconomics and another one is macroeconomics. So while microeconomics deals with the problems associated with let us say a small company, a person, an individual entity, macroeconomics deals with the problems associated with the allocation of scarce resources for realization of unlimited wants at a national level. Correct? So here, so to make the things simple, let us take two illustrations, one for microeconomics and another for macroeconomics. See, with regard to microeconomics, so let us say there is a company, let us say there is an entrepreneur who has to decide whether the profits realized in a particular year, should he have to use that money for towards marketing the product so that the sales would improve, or should you have to use the same money, should you have to use the same profit for obtaining a patent, or for investing in advanced manufacturing equipment that would bring his cost down or that would reduce his turnaround time, right? So the resource, the profit is limited, but the needs are unlimited, like marketing, like improving a manufacturing process, like securing the intellectual property, so on and so forth. So it is the economics that would act as a tool to this entrepreneur to decide as to how this scarce resource of profit has to be gainfully, smartly allocated to these wants or needs. Correct? So let us take the same thing at a national level. So national level mein the resources are very much limited. See, the resources available at the disposal of government or citizens at any point of time is limited, right? See, for this purpose we can distinguish the capital between public capital and private capital for the sake of convenience. By public capital we can mean the budget available with the government or the money available with the government, and private capital means the money available with the public. Correct? So but the needs are unlimited. Improved healthcare, improved education, or reducing the taxation to speed up further economic growth, or entrepreneurial for creating conducive entrepreneurial environment. So or the money should be used for better roads, better infrastructure, right? So a country as a whole has huge demand, huge unlimited wants, huge number of unlimited wants, but the resources are limited, right? So this economics, the study of economics seeks to guide these policymakers, or seeks to offer solutions as to how this limited public capital or private capital for that matter to be allocated to various needs or various demands, whatever. So I think I have made the concept of economics very clear. Now let us come to the meaning of economist. Who is an economist? Economist in the strictest sense is an expert or a practitioner of the discipline of economics who studies the availability of resources, and who studies the nature of needs or wants or demands, then using already available economic models or theories or using his common sense, he comes up with some solutions after doing due research as to how this particular scarce resource should be allocated to various wants or needs. Correct? So this is basically, an economist is an academician, is a practitioner who studies, who explores the various ways in which the limited resources have to be allocated to unlimited wants. Correct? This is the term, strictest term, meaning of economist. Correct? Thus, by putting together the meaning of economics and economist, we can decipher the essence of the essay topic. This topic essentially means the job of coming up with solutions to ensure effective allocation of limited resources to unlimited wants cannot be performed satisfactorily by economists who are nothing but academicians who study the nature of resources, nature of wants, study the established principles in the discipline called economics, and study the theories already propounded by former economists and try to either apply the existing theories to come up with the solution or to propound their own theories to come up with the solution. Correct? So this job of effective and efficient utilization allocation of scarce resources to unlimited wants cannot be satisfactorily done by the economists themselves. So it has to be done by others. So this is the essence of the topic. Thus, what are the, broadly, what are the objectives of economics? So one is equitable resource allocation, which I have already told you, and better, inclusive, eco-friendly development to ensure better, inclusive and eco-friendly development. So to make this abstract concept of resource allocation more and more concrete, I have said, so the objective of economics should be to ensure these two things. Correct? So the topic is saying is actually arguing that only economists cannot come up with solutions for this, cannot come up with solutions for this, or cannot come up with solutions, to put it in textual terms, for efficient allocation of limited resources for unlimited wants. Then who can realize these objectives of economics? So this is how you have to set the stage and then go for the next analysis. Friends, I have already explained it to you. The essence of the topic is that economists are not good at coming up with solutions for ensuring effective allocation of scarce resources to unlimited wants. Correct? Then why is that so? Why are they not competent enough to do that? So that we can discuss in this slide. So under the heading limitation of economists. Correct? So the first and foremost thing is mutually exclusive schools of thoughts. Economics does not have one unified school of thought, friends. So there are many schools of thoughts. There are development economists. There are welfare economists. There are capital economists who are capitalists. There are economists who believe in socialism. And recently there are economists who dub themselves as green economists, etc., etc. Correct? So thus there is no one school of thought. And unfortunately, the school of thought which, these schools of thoughts in most of the cases are mutually exclusive. What do you mean by mutually exclusive? They tend to support and advocate one objective, but achieving that objective would necessarily lead to undermining other objectives. Correct? So, for example, let us take green economists. Green economists would argue that resources have to be allocated in such a way that they don't compromise the environmental quality. Correct? They always advocate that environment should be given the topmost priority while doing resource allocation. Correct? But don't you their single-minded focus is only environmental protection. But that the resorting to eco-friendly solutions sometimes may lead to cost overruns, may sometimes lead to time overruns, may sometimes lead to more prices that would actually make the products less affordable, less accessible to poor people. Correct? So this, but their single-minded focus is this. So thus, and let us say there are socialists, the economists who believe in socialism. So they believe that government should have total control over the should have total control over the economy, should possess commanding heights in the economy. Correct? So this single-minded focus will let them miss the important point that there is more efficiency in capitalism because of competition. So thus there is no single thus economists represent a particular school of thought, but that particular school of thought advocate the realization of one objective, but unfortunately realization of that objective would essentially undermine the realization of other objectives propagated by other schools of thought. So what we essentially need is a harmony between various schools of thought that would actually lead to a solution that is finally beneficial to society, beneficial to citizens as a whole. Correct? So which is very difficult in the arena of economists. So thus this is the first limiting factor. So economists, there are some economists who believe in capitalism, there are some economists who believe in welfare, but there are hardly any economists who would try to bring the best of all these schools and come up with a solution. And second thing is, economists are mostly theorists. Why do we say this? An economist is a theorist with rarely any exposure to the practical realities. Okay, let us say, let me illustrate. An economist would believe that no freebie should be given to the citizens. It is correct. As per the rule book of economics, as per the textbook of economics, a freebie would actually ruin an economy. Correct. But there are certain cases where a policymaker has to essentially resort to freebie with some particular point in mind. Giving free rice to poor people, giving free rice to those section of societies who cannot make their ends meet would stop hunger deaths, would lead to equitable development. Correct? But many economists would not agree to it. Correct? So similarly, let us say there is an economist who believes in capitalism. He would not expect government to be in any economic sector at all. But at times it is essential for the government to have total control over some public goods like drinking water, like electricity. Don't you think if drinking water is the economic sector of drinking water, provision of drinking water is thrown open to private sector, government sidestepping itself, don't you think at the end of the day private people would start charging more money, then even access to the drinking water becomes difficult and a distant dream for many people, and finally that lack of access to pure water would lead to lot of social unrest, civil unrest, that would actually lead to a civil riots. Correct? So what I am trying to tell you is, as per theory, whatever is written in theory need not be practicable. So mostly wherever economists try to advance their theories without any practical sense, then that could be disastrous. Okay, so thus mostly since economists are theorists, so it becomes difficult for them to make economics work successfully. Then most economics theories are based on assumptions. If you read any economics theory, it is mostly based on assumptions. If those assumptions don't if those assumptions are not taken into consideration, then the theory fails. Correct. So thus, this is another limitation, because it is very difficult to construct or to come up with a scenario with all those assumptions in place. Correct. Because the real world problems hardly have any assumptions. Correct. So thus, it is another limitation for an economist. Then, preeminence of quantitative factors. Friends, if you observe, economics deals with only quantitative factors like price, like rent, like profit, like national income, like production, like distribution. It deals with quantitative factors while not taking into consideration the qualitative factors. So funnily, I am reminded of this Rakhi Bhai of KGF 2, where he is not satisfied with the amount of gold mined by mine workers. An economist also wants more production, right? So just like our Rakhi Bhai, but that qualitative aspect of health of mine workers, the qualitative aspect of the exploitation that those mine workers are subjected to extract more gold is hardly taken into consideration. So somehow that economists are give predominance importance to quantitative factors while relegating qualitative factors to rare. Next, they are planners but non-doers. Correct, right? Any economist would come up with a theory. Any economist would come up with a solution on paper. But there should be someone beyond economist to implement that solution, to make that solution work. Let us say an economist says there should be more private capital infusion into the economy. Correct. If there are no entrepreneurs who are ready to invest money, then the mere solution offered by the economist would not serve any purpose, right? So, and also economist would say improved healthcare would lead to improved production in future. But in the absence of doctors, in the absence of paramedical staff, in the absence of entrepreneurs who are ready to invest in healthcare industry, their plan does not work. So thus, the role of economist gets restricted to planning and to give solutions on paper. The responsibility of translating those solutions into reality should have to be borne by other actors like professionals, entrepreneurs, policymakers, etc. And lack of charisma to influence public. See, friends, economics, the objectives of economics would be realized only when public are guided to behave in a particular way. Correct. See, because the society is filled with public, so the problems affect public at large. So basically, if every person in the society is taken into confidence, if every person is not guided to act in a particular way, then most policies falter. Correct. So it is important for us to influence the public. But who can influence the public? A person, a political leader with charisma can only influence public. Correct. An economist can say that if the public act in this way, then perhaps it would lead to gainful outcomes. But an economist may not be suited to go out in open and convince the public, right? So that aspect has to be necessarily done by political leaders, at times by religious leaders also. So, thus, since economists lack charisma to influence public, so their role in making economics work gets limited. Friends, in the previous slide, we discussed about the limitations of an economist in making economics work. Correct? So then, if economist cannot do it, then who else can do it? Who can make economics work? Okay, the first and foremost category is policy makers, friends. See, if economist can propound a theory, can come up with an idea, can come up with a solution, unless a policy maker takes leaf out of that suggestion or solution and then translate it into policy, economics will not work. So, and also policy maker being very well aware of the realities, practicabilities, then he would be in a better position to take good decisions, correct? So thus the first category is beyond economist, it is a policy maker who can make things work. Okay, I think the best example I'm reminded of C Rangarajan sir, who as an RBI governor converted this, stopped the practice of automatic monetization of government debt, that is printing of more currency to monetize the government debt, and then introduced a new system of ways and means advances, which I think anyway you would have read in economy. So this was done by Rangarajan sir as a policy maker, as an RBI governor. It's a different story that he is an economist also, but this action of him was done, he did this action by donning the hat of a policy maker, not the hat of an economist, correct? So second thing is administrators. See, the policy makers can formulate the policy, but the implementation of policy is in the hands of administrators, right? So if the administrators will not, let us say if administrator does not implement the policies in the right spirit, then perhaps the spirit of policy gets watered down. So then the economics would not work, correct? I am reminded of another example here, friends. When Y.V. Reddy sir was governor of RBI, he took a very serious note of irregularities in RNBCs. RNBC stands for Residuary Non-Banking Company. At that time, Sahara India Financial Corporation Limited was the topmost RNBC in India. They were gathering deposits, daily deposits and monthly deposits from from many lakhs of households across the country, and they were running this residuary non-banking company, correct? So, but citing this, realizing that they were not adhering to proper capital adequacy norms and even know your customer KYC norms. So the RBI sensed that the deposits of lakhs of households were in great danger. So hence they wanted to regulate the operation of RNBCs. Then Y.V. Reddy sir wanted it to be done in a more professional way, and he wanted it to be done by duly co-opting the Sahara itself. Okay, so for which he picked up two of his trusted lieutenants. One is I think Deputy Governor V. Leeladhar sir, and followed by one Executive Director by name Gopal Krishna. They were entrusted with task of sitting with Sahara team and coming up with a solution. That included solutions including convincing the Sahara to stop taking deposits, to pay the depositors' money as and when they mature, and then to reconstitute the board, etc., etc., etc. So this was ably executed by both Leeladhar and Gopal Krishna. So they were the administrators. See, though the policy maker decided to regulate the business and to curtail the business so that the economy would not get out of control, it was these administrators who made it happen. So friends, this is this information is excerpted from a book called Sahara, the Untold Story by Tamal Bandyopadhyaya. So basically what I am trying to tell you is, to cut a long story short, as a banking regulator, as a custodian of ensuring financial stability, so the RBI policymaker realized that this financial stability would get jeopardized if this RNBC, Sahara India Financial Corporation Limited, would indulge in some irregular practices and would start investing the money, hard-earned money of the depositors in some risky assets. So that would actually lead to chaos because lakhs of households were involved. Correct? So they wanted to streamline it. They wanted to straitjacket it. So at that point of time, so they decided, and this task was assigned to administrators, and those administrators made it happen. Perhaps an economist would actually say that any deposit collection and any such RNBC should be regulated properly. That idea an economist can give, but it is an administrator who can make those companies work the way suggested by an economist. Okay. Then comes entrepreneur. Friends, entrepreneurs are the lifeblood of any economy. If entrepreneurs don't take risk, if entrepreneurs don't invest, they don't commit the capital for gainful needs, for gainful endeavors, then perhaps the economy, the wheels of economy would not run. Correct? So thus, though an economist can propose for more capital, private capital infusion, unless that capital infusion is ensured by a private capitalist, so things will not move. Correct? So thus, it is an entrepreneur who can make economics work, not just the economist. Then social workers. Of late, friends, we have realized that, of late the economics also has expanded its arena to include social sectors like health, education, etc. And now we are talking about inclusive growth, equitable growth. So when can you achieve inclusive growth? Only when the fruits of economic development are shared with every section of society, every citizen, every member of society. Correct? So that is possible only when every member of society is equally capable to put his abilities to corner the economic development. When can a person be able to corner gains out of economics of economic development? Only when he has required physical health, required intellectual health. So that physical health is ensured by health, by providing proper health care. This intellectual health is ensured by mostly education. Correct? So thus it is only those social workers who can go to the remotest pockets and seek to improve the health, education, nutrition status of the citizens. Correct? So thus an economist cannot do that. So it is a social worker who can do that. Then comes professionals, doctors, teachers, lawyers, engineers, technocrats, technicians, scientists, insurers, chartered accountants, whatnot, friends. So all these people play a critical role in making economics work, in ensuring that the limited resources are gainful or properly allocated to unlimited needs. Correct? It is not just the economist. Last thing is politician. Friends, we are in a democracy. Or whether you are in a democracy, whether you are in an autocracy, whether you are in a communist ruled government, wherever, it is the politician who calls the shots. An economist may come up with the best theory, best solution. If politician does not put that into practice, things will not work. So thus, economics cannot be left to the economists alone. And also, these are the politicians who understand the public pulse better than others. I was telling you that for making economics work, every citizen should be made to act in a specified way. Who can make that happen? It is only politician who can make that happen, friends. So thus their role is also critical. So in a nutshell, beyond economists, we need policymakers, administrators, entrepreneurs, social workers, professionals, politicians, etc. to ensure that economics work. Okay, you cannot leave economics only to the forte of economists. Friends, after launching a tirade against economists, it is now the time for us to pause for a moment and counter our own arguments. I always tell you, right, our essay has to be critical. When will it be critical? Only when you bat for the topic and then when you bat against the topic after a while, correct? So now it is the time for us to critically analyze the topic. The topic says economists are not good enough to make economics work, but is it so? Definitely no. They also have a critical role to play. How? First, they set the agenda for development. Friends, I mean, if not for economists, India would not have embraced mixed economy, right? If not for economists, China would not have embraced communist form of government. If not for economists, if not for an economist like John Maynard Keynes, America would not have embraced the policy of expansionary fiscal policy that brought America out of Great Depression in 1929. Correct? So thus, it is the economist who sets the agenda for development. Perhaps if once the agenda is set for development, then the other actors will come into picture and ensure that ensure that that agenda is realized. Correct? So economist is the starting point. Then economist does not just set the agenda, he would also chalk out the path for realization of agenda. Correct? So an economist like John Maynard Keynes did not just say that expansionary policies, he also said that the government should start spending more. So similarly, many green economists, they don't just say the government should embrace eco-friendly mode of development. They also come up with how the government can do. So, or to take another example, so the economists who bat for inclusive development would say that we should improve the health outcomes, we should improve the education outcomes. Of course, they don't play a direct role in designing the programs to improve health outcomes or education outcomes, but at least it is they who said that in order to ensure inclusive development, you have to improve the health, you have to improve the education, you have to improve the nutrition. Correct? I mean, is it not an economist? Is it anyone other than an economist who came up with this concept of Human Development Index, friends? No, right? It is an economist. After he came up with the concept of HDI only, we started running behind education, health. Earlier we were running behind only income. So then, economists also offer solution to drive other social factors. What are other social factors? Maybe social dogmas, maybe discarded, maybe unwarranted social practices like child marriages, correct? So it is an economist who would say we should ensure that we should come up with a policy to discourage child marriages. So to make that happen, then government would come up with policies like financial assistance to women who is married off after 18 years of age, or realizing that lack of education is one of the reasons for marrying of the women at a tender age. So then the government would establish more educational institutions for girls. Then the government would also start giving scholarships for girls, etc., etc. Correct? So thus, to drive other societal factors also, an economist would offer good solutions. Then comes next point is offers measurement metrics. Friends, what are these measurement metrics? See, there is a famous saying in management: what gets measured gets managed. So if you want to manage something, first you have to measure that and then identify the gaps and then try to fill up those gaps. So thus GDP, GNP, national income, human development index, gross enrollment ratio, number of doctors per thousand population, all these are the metrics developed by economists only. So these metrics would help us to analyze, to understand whether we are going in the right direction or not. It would also help us to press accelerator and increase our efforts whenever we are not able to realize those metrics. Correct? So this, if not for economists, we would not have, if not for the measurement metrics offered or designed by economists, we would not have cared much. We would have gone, the development would have gone at its own sweet pace. Then self-regulatory mechanisms to prevent extremities. Friends, economists normally design any economic system in such a way that that the system itself self-regulates to scuttle any extremity. What do I mean by this? I want to take the same example of C. Rangarajan sir, which I referred to in the last slide. See, he replaced the system of automatic monetization of government debt by ways and means advance. Correct? So, this system itself self-regulates the extremities. What are these extremities and how does this system work? See, what is this automatic monetization of government debt? That means whenever the government borrows from RBI, since RBI is lender to the government, banker to the government, then the government is not in a position to repay, then what happens? Then the RBI will print more notes, correct? They will print more notes and they will try to monetize the government debt. What will this happen? What will this lead to? First, government would be reckless in spending because the government need not have to ask anyone. It keeps spending, it keeps borrowing, it need not have to repay. Correct? So when the government starts borrowing more without any hindrance, without any obstacle, then there is more money flow in the economy that would lead to inflationary pressure. Correct? When there is such inflationary pressure in the economies, the prices of goods go up. Finally, common man is put to loss. This is very bad economics. Correct? So now this shifting to ways and means advances, the economist has come up with a solution such that it is a ways and means advance where government has to act as a borrower. So then there would be some restriction on the government to borrow from RBI. The government would not resort to unwarranted, unmindful fiscal expansionary policy. So that would actually serve the purpose of maintaining price stability and economic stability. Correct? So thus, the most of the times the economists devise the systems in such a way that the system should itself take care of these extremities. Next, solution to the problem created by one economic theory is offered by another economic theory. Friends, don't you think, initially I only said that these multiple schools of thought lead to a lot of confusion and they are mutually exclusive. But the problems created by one economic theory is solved by another economic theory. See, the problem created by the capitalist school of thought of economists is being redressed and solved by green economists, sustainable economists. Correct? Human Development Index, Sustainable Development, Green Economics, all these are the concepts propounded by economics only, right? To address the problems that is mostly created by capitalist mode of development. Then, forecast of future, corrective action. See, most of the times economists have this tendency to study the economy and caution the policy makers to tweak the policy action such that the economic stability does not get compromised. The best example is economist Joseph Stiglitz and even our own Indian economist Raghuram Rajan, who were the economists who predicted the 2007 global financial subprime crisis. The recession that hit the world in 2007 was predicted by these two economists. Perhaps had their predictions were taken seriously by policymakers and put some restrictions on this banks and financial institutions that were lending left, right and center without thinking of the asset quality that is being created by the money lent by them. Okay, I think I am sounding a little too complex. See, friends, these Joseph Stiglitz and Raghuram Rajan, these two economists they predicted that lot of bubbles were being created in loan industry. Correct? What do you mean by bubble? What is loan? Basically, a bank gives a loan by taking an asset as mortgage, right, as collateral, right? So if that asset turns non-profitable, if that asset is not in a position to pay back the loan given, then perhaps if the borrower defaults, then the bank is in no position to recover the money. If the bank is in no position to recover the money, then bank is not in a position to pay to its depositor or pay to its investor. So then everybody would lose money. Correct? So at least when these two economists predicted, had policymakers instituted some regulations on such banks which were doing reckless lending, perhaps the adverse impact of global financial crisis could have been less. We don't know. So thus these economists have the smartness to foresee and suggest corrective actions. Then the last point is offers fodder for decision making. That's what I told you, friends. I have been harping on this. So economists actually give solid evidence backed by data, on the basis of which a policymaker or a politician can take a decision which will become an informed decision. See, there can be an emotional decision, there can be a rational decision. So, if you really want to take an informed decision, rational decision, you have to, the economists become indispensable. So, after this elaborate discussion, it is time for conclusion, friends. Friends, we have argued, we have discussed as to the limitations of economists. Then we have dwelt upon the role which other actors play in making economics work. Correct? Afterwards, we have stepped back and we have thrown adequate light on the critical role that any economist can play in any economy. Correct? So thus, after all this discussion, the best way to conclude is, though economists alone cannot make economics work, economics cannot altogether work in their absence. I repeat again, though economists alone cannot make economics work, to make economics work, you need the services of policymakers, administrators, entrepreneurs, social workers, professionals, politicians, whatnot. Though their services are essentially required to make economics work, but in the absence of economists, economy cannot work, because economists are the bedrock, and it is these economists who would activate the other actors. So thus, to put it in other words, an economist turned policymaker, or an economist turned administrator, or an economist turned entrepreneur, or an economist turned social worker can only ensure that economics work, can only ensure the proper allocation of scarce limited resources to unlimited wants. Correct? That means every actor, whether it is policymaker or a professional or a politician or an administrator or a social worker, has to be necessarily an economist himself. Correct? That sense of economist should be necessarily present in all these actors. Only when all these actors act in two capacities, one as economist, one as policymaker, one as economist, one as social worker, then only society would progress. Friends, that's it. So that's for the day. All the best, folks. Happy reading.